This computer. Recording in progress, Terence. How are you?
Yep, I see it blinking on my side, so we're good.
Good to go. All right, man. Nice to meet you.
You too, both of you.
Yeah. Well, Lauren, go for it. Fire away. What's your question?
Why did you write a book?
I wrote a book because in my circles, which mostly are Hollywood with movies and TV shows, and in real estate, there's a lot of people that seemingly have a lot of money, but also a lot of money problems. And I wanted to write something for them that I know that would speak to them and that they would understand using story, using analogies, using metaphors, to help them see a superior money. So I titled it Proof of Money because my thesis is really that we've never, ever throughout history had money. We've always had attempts, surrogates, coupons, and finally, for the first time ever, with the arrival of Bitcoin, we finally have what we've been looking for.
This is why, Lauren, I like to say it's a financial evolution, not a financial revolution. So Terence is coming to the same kind of conclusions that I am, that we as a species are evolving again onto the purest medium of exchange that we're likely ever to discover. This is it.
Absolutely. Because for the first time, we've actually created it, Lauren. As you know, we've engineered it. And before we had to find it in a river or on the top of a mountain or, dig it up somewhere.
Yeah, but everyone knows evolution does take a long time.
Yeah, but now we're doing it in the digital realm. And it's going way quicker than anybody could ever have imagined. So Bitcoin is only 14, right? It's only a teenager. But look,
yeah, it's a good point. Think about how long it used to take to deliver a message to someone, right? On camelback or via pigeon or, eventually even the mail, which still takes 3, 4, 5 days. And now it's just whoosh, sent.
What's camelback? What?
Well, just maybe someone in Saudi Arabia riding on a camel with a note to deliver to the king and have to go over the Sahara Desert.
Sorry, I thought. Sorry, I completely missed.
Did you think camelback was another shitcoin or something?
Something that you use like back then on your old crappy computers. I was like,
operating system. Yeah. Well, it was.
Yeah, before the computers. Yeah, long before you.
Yeah. All right. So, kind of a big deal, kids.
Just kinda.
As we evolve onto this new era.
But what's scary is that since we're always going to be evolving, Bitcoin will be evolved and then will be thrown.
Oh, that's for thousands of years in advance for people to figure out. Right now, we just got to get it right this time around, and then they can carry it on. If they ever need to, they might not ever need to. This is. How long has it been? Well, look at the length of the human timeline, and here we are now just discovering increasing digital scarcity, which still blows my mind. Just saying those words.
I mean, or look at the wheel, Lauren. We improve upon it, but fundamentally, it's still just a round circle made from math. And we don't know who the inventor of the wheel is. We don't know where it came from, but we all use it in our own special way. And we can improve upon it, but it's really just a round circle.
Excellent analogy, actually, the wheel. I love this one. I think Canute used it in one of his books. I can't remember if it was Everything Divided by 21 Million or not. But the wheel had been in use for other purposes before it became the wheel as we know it today, right? So in fact, they used to have it laying horizontal, and they would use wheels to crush grain to make flour. Then some bright spark just stood it up vertically, and they're like, oh, look, we can use this now to transport stuff. But that wheel wasn't perfect, and it wasn't perfect because they were not using the foundational mathematical properties of pi. That wheel might have been 3.16599 or something. It wasn't 3.141 and ever, so it wasn't perfect. It took somebody else to then take that idea and then codify it into the perfect wheel that we have today. And then everything going forward I mean, we have wheels of all kinds of different shapes and sizes, but it all comes back down to that foundational unit of pi, and that's what we build every single wheel on going forward. Otherwise, you'd end up with a hexagonal wheel, and that's a shitcoin, and that's like hex.
Hexagonal wheel. Okay.
Yeah.
You drank too much coffee.
Anyway, say thank you to Terence, and then we'll carry on with the...
Anyways, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Lauren.
All right. So we can't let that one sit. You've mentioned
that's the favorite.
Hollywood,
that's the best part.
Hollywood and movies and real estate. So everybody loves a rabbit hole story and a little bit of background. Who are you? Where do you come from? I hadn't heard of you until you reached out and said, "I've written a Bitcoin book. Let's go." I've been listening to it. Thank you for doing an Audible. That is so helpful. And you narrate it, and you narrate it perfectly. So I'm sure that's some of your background career coming through there as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's going on?
So let's see. I'll do the quick version. Just stop me if it's too quick. But so I studied business, and I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't study filmmaking, but I figured, well, films need to be made, so I'll become the businessman of film. So I started a movie company right out of college. Fortunately, I found success pretty quickly in that I was able to raise some money and meet the right people. After making 20 feature films, I got a little burnt out, and I also got a little tired of the money-making process and of the money-raising process. So I went into television, where as a producer, it's a little bit more creative, where I often write the first episode or will even direct the first episode, and it's much faster. And you're not asking for money. You sell it and a network funds it, and that's it. Because there's really no such thing as an independent television industry. It's very rare. So I did that, and I started to see how money was broken because me and all my friends couldn't get a mortgage. We all were making really good money in Hollywood, and yet we couldn't get houses. And the banks really just wanted someone who had a regular income at a IBM, and you'd been there for 20 years, and something that you can verify income. We're just like a traveling circus, right? We're all gypsies, and we make really good money, and then it's dry for 6 months, and then you make good money, and so it's scary, which I get. So I formed a mortgage brokerage company for Hollywood, and which I still run to this day. And I write the mortgages for a lot of people in Hollywood because we change the narrative of how they make money so that the banks will understand that. And so going through that mortgage process in real estate, I started to see all the statements, the financial statements. I started to see how people traded, how they saved for retirement, the mutual funds and stocks and whatnot. And I just started to see how broken it was, that we were all having to have these second jobs just to secure our first job, and that everyone was looking for side hustles. Just Hollywood alone, is as well paying as it is, wasn't enough. So I'd written a couple of books. One was a self-improvement book, and another one was a real estate book, and really just speaking to people in Hollywood in how to sort of monetize your skills and your passions. And some of it seems a little woo-woo when I look back at it now, but all the things that as I came into Bitcoin, I discovered help solve, that we can have this pure money that can take our preferences and our choices and honor them and let us be good at whatever our trade is. You think about the whole reason that they're called trades. Originally we're supposed to be able to just specialize in one thing and trade it for something else. And I was like, well, how come all of these people in Hollywood that are making this great money, or that are eventually getting into real estate and making good money, why are they all continuing to have issues and having to take risks? And then, of course, with the 2008 collapse, which, of course, as we know, where the birth of the white paper was from Satoshi. I was right in the thick of that. I was a broker. All these people had these loans. Lots of my friends and family, my girlfriend, all lost their homes. And I know a lot of them have to take some personal responsibility and accountability for that. Like, they were their loans, but at the same time, we encouraged that. That was the fiat system we were in. And, as having been in the financial markets and Forex and whatnot, it becomes this game. It's like this external scoring system, and you know, that's how we speak to people, and it's how we sort of validated some of our worth and ego. And you know, what movies have you produced, what TV shows did you do, you know, how many houses do you have, and you know, and with you it might be like a great trade you did. And so that's the quick just nutshell of me. So coming from story, coming from every movie, you know, there's only like 7 stories in Hollywood, right? We're just telling the same story over and over. It's all the hero's journey, and, you know, what's the obstacle and where do you want to be and how do you transform and what lessons do you learn from it? And it's the same thing with Bitcoin. Like, I went through it. I went through that same hero's journey, and, you know, I met the wrong people and I went down the wrong path, and I needed my mentors. I needed the big ordeal to be resurrected and return with the elixir, and, you know, all these steps that we know. You know, story, we need to go through these same steps or it's not fulfilling. And so I thought, well, I could take some of this that I've learned in Hollywood, and I can take the massively broken system in passive real estate income. I'm not talking about if someone really wants to own their own home. I get that. I appreciate that. But all the people that don't want to be landlords, don't want to deal with toilets and trash and tenants, it's like, and, you know, don't need to be at Home Depot on midnight figuring out all these things, or running Airbnb businesses. All of these things that I've done. I've flipped over 20 homes. I had half a dozen Airbnbs. I did all this, and I thought I was a genius, but it was very, very broken. It was exhausting, and, you know, I almost killed myself, not suicidally, but, you know, metaphorically, with how hard I worked. That I wanted, when I found Bitcoin and I saw how many things it solved in so many disciplinary areas, I thought, this is just incredible, beyond just even a financial asset, that I wanted to just share it with the world and wanted to devote it most of my time for that. So I do very little Hollywood now and very little real estate now, and do mostly Bitcoin education. I still have toes in those places because there are still things that inspire me and things that I want to do, but I get to say no a lot, and I get to try to bring those skills to Bitcoin. Like, I'm developing a couple of projects with Tomer now, and, you know, a couple of them might be really big sci-fi movies, and who knows if they'll happen, and some of them might be smaller, but it's like, oh, here's Tomer. Okay, he's a writer, I'm a producer, let's talk. And, you know, and so I'm trying to do my best, and my entrance was the book. You know, I had like 6 followers on Twitter before the book because I didn't know a soul, and I would drive by the Pacific Bitcoin Festival in Santa Monica, which is like just a few miles from my house, and look in, and I would be like, oh man, I wish I could go there, but who am I? I don't know anybody. I want to contribute something. And carrying over sort of what I knew from Hollywood, it's like the first 3 years I would go to film festivals like Sundance and Cannes and stuff, but I'd never produced anything. And I felt like a complete idiot. And I was almost treated that way. Like, you would meet someone and, oh, who are you? Oh, I'm a producer. Oh, great. What have you done? Nothing. Like, you know, the head turns, swivels so fast and moves on to the next person. And in Bitcoin, it wasn't like that. Like, they just accepted me with open arms, and which was fantastic. But I just still wanted to share something. I like creation over consumption. You know, I like building, and so on one hand, I think, am I just saying the same thing everybody else is? Who needs another Bitcoin book? You know, who needs another Bitcoin podcast? But maybe we're continuing to offer gateways and doors for people to continue to come in, and someone may not go back to listen to a podcast 2 years ago. So maybe this is what we need to do. And maybe I should stop rambling. So
it is what we need to do, 100%. And all right, so you're giving me loads to go on here. One thing that before we start unpacking it all, at what point then throughout all of that journey did you what was the thing? Was it a YouTube video? Was it a book? Who was it? A friend? How did Bitcoin suddenly like present itself, and what made you fall deep down into the rabbit hole and consume all of the content that we find ourselves consuming when we first, you know, get inspired by it?
So 2 things that started my journey where I didn't fully understand Bitcoin. I thought I did, but I didn't. But that really hooked me in. 2 things. One was Ben Mesrick's book, Bitcoin Billionaires, and because that's a story of the Winklevi and, you know, their second act after Facebook, it caught me because I love story. And
Ben's in
again, not
Hollywood,
fully
right?
What's that?
And Ben's in Hollywood, right? You know, he's done
Yes,
some
Ben's
of
in
his books have
Hollywood.
been made into films. So
Yes, The Social
someone that
Network,
resonates with you.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just did Dumb Money.
21.
And
Come on, Ben.
21.
What are you doing? Like, he's
There's
so
the number.
close. He's so
So
he's
close.
infuriatingly close, really.
Yeah. And he writes for the TV show Billions, which not everyone knows, but and anyways, they're making that into a movie now. The Winklevi movie, which is great. So that started my intrigue and the story of them being in Cyprus and not having access to their money and this alternate system. And I thought, okay, well, they're not stupid. Like if they're onto something. And still, I was just still thinking of it as an investment, as a trade. Like, oh, I could make money with this thing. I didn't understand it for what we Bitcoiners now understand it to be. And secondly was then I had read somewhere, I don't know from who or how, but about the mystery of Satoshi. And I thought, what the hell? This sounds fake. This is science fiction. How could this person make this thing and disappear, take no money, no accolades, nothing, and just give it to... I didn't get that. And that fascinated me. I still want to make some kind of movie about the mystery of Satoshi, just the fact that it's a mystery and that we are all Satoshi and that it doesn't even matter. But it's just fascinating. And so I started reading about how Finney and Nick Szabo and Adam Back and, Len Sassaman and all these different people. And like, well, was it the NSA? Is it the guy from Beautiful Mind, or a combination of all these people? And so none of that really told me about Bitcoin, but it told me that there was something special enough here that if someone were to make this an exit, and that the Winklevi, who at the time in the fiat world I looked up to and was like, wow, they, I should be so lucky to be them or to do what they do, got me involved. And then like all of us, bought Bitcoin, bought Ethereum, bought all the altcoins, DeFi, leverage, CeFi scams. Like, man, if it's there, I experienced it. I did it all, Daniel. I embarrassingly did it all, and I lived it. I lived it in real time because I have this private newsletter with just people in my circles. Just, and I'm not looking for people. I don't want anyone to join. There's no way to join. This is just people that I've added over my time, right? But there's over 1,000 of my real estate Hollywood people, and the whole time, oh my God, you guys, check this out. There's this thing called BlockFi. Like, we're used to earning percentages and, now you should get CDs. Now you should, you raise the interest rates, right? We have to hurdle inflation. And so I lived everything in real time. And it wasn't until, unfortunately, when we started to see that the centralized finance platforms were scams, that's when I got fully orange pilled. That's what it really took for me. I was like, now I freaking get it. And, every day I'm still learning more. Every day I'm seeing it from a new perspective. And so that's how I got orange pilled. There wasn't a moment, but this is why I try, like, I am a maximalist, but I try not to be too toxic because I just try to think like, I don't know, the toxicity didn't work for me. I heard all those people. It didn't work for me. I had to get wrecked to get, say, what would be a good saying? I had to get wrecked to get well. I had to get, I don't know, to wake up, something. I'll come up with something.
The hero's journey, man. Like
the hero's journey. Yeah.
That's how you were wired. And most likely because of your past in Hollywood. So I hate to be that guy at the cocktail party that you've come to abide, but share us some of the films you made. You said you'd made over 20 feature films. I'm sure a lot of people listening would love to know a little bit more. We always, it's human nature to try and peek under the curtain of other industries and sectors and what really goes on, and other people's successes and failures. So what were some of the movies that people might know, and we can get into the highs and lows of that lifestyle as well, if you like.
Well, sure. Well, I'll go backwards only because I've mostly just been doing, television in the last decade. So that's, some people may, or depending on their age, may not even know some of my films, but like Duck Dynasty was one of my bigger TV shows. We did, 14, 15 seasons of that. And that was an incredible experience because not only are those guys Bitcoiners, like they're Bitcoiners before them knowing about Bitcoin, but they literally live the proof of work life. And that became the biggest, it still to this day holds the record for the largest viewing audience on cable reality TV history. So that eventually became a musical in Vegas. There were albums, there were best-selling New York Times books. Like, it just became this big brand. So I mentioned Duck Dynasty just because I think it's been in about 100 different languages and 100 different countries. And,
right. Okay. I had to look it up because
people remember the guys with beards and they hunted ducks, but they loved God. They worked for their food. They were homeschoolers. They were homesteaders, and really it was a scripted show. Like, we had writers from Arrested Development and Modern Family, and we wrote, but they were real people. We just wrote things for them to do, which most people know that that's what reality is. We don't just turn on the cameras and they're doing something interesting. So so I did a lot of reality shows like that. I did a show called Auction Hunters, which went for 100 episodes. Where they would go to these storage units that weren't paid, and they would auction and open them up, and we'd dig through the treasure, and they would learn what it was and sell it.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So those were really popular in the day.
And were they really, like, you had no idea what was behind the door, or was there some kind of little Hollywood magic going on as well?
Yeah, there was a little magic going on, so that typical of all Hollywood. So we would buy real units. They would buy real units. There would be real stuff, but the network would want to be guaranteed that there's something really interesting there. And it just so happens, Daniel, that thing that they found would always have to explode or be visual, fly into the air, a gun. If we could have found an astronaut suit and gone to the moon, they would have loved that. And they wanted us to bring the items to life, right? So if they find something, it's not just you go and sell it. They have to try it on, right? They have to see if it works. So we would go around. We went to all over America, and so whatever city we were in, it was sort of related to the city that we would be in. But so there's a lot of shows like that. I stayed away from game shows and or Kardashians or things that were like that kind of reality that just to get a rise out of people. I liked things that were there. We call them like occudramas, where it was occupational and they were doing something real,
Right.
like the Duck Dynasty guys, or like boxers, or whatever. So we did a lot of that. Going back into film, I did a lot of teen comedies. I did a movie called 100 Girls, and then a sequel called 100 Women. These were for Lionsgate. Early on in my career, I did a film with a very young little Scarlett Johansson, and we became friends, and she did 3 movies with me now, all when she was really young and before she became big. So that was a lot of fun. Have done let's see, I'm trying to think some movies you might know. Well, so I developed what was supposed to be the sequel to the movie Speed, but something else became Speed, and this became its own movie. But this was they were on this ice cream truck, and the temperature couldn't rise above a certain temperature before this thing was going to blow up. And but that became a movie called Chill Factor with Cuba Gooding Jr., which was a big Warner Brothers movie. And most of my films have sort of been like Sundance and South by Southwest film festival things. And I want to say a little over half of them were sold to the studio. So MGM or Universal or whoever would release it. But for the most part, they were art films. And the reason why is because, sort of thinking like a Bitcoiner before I knew I was a Bitcoiner, I think in only 1 or 2 cases did I allow the studio to finance any of my films. I always financed them by raising my own money. Like, we wanted to have control of the creator. We wanted to make our film. And then afterwards, we would have these screenings and send out links or whatever. And whoever was the highest buyer, we sold it. And then we would go to the 180 other countries at the markets and sell it. And so we'd piece it together. And it was a lot of work, but It was more enjoyable. It's just less people end up seeing your film because you're not making the Titanic. You're making a $3 million independent movie. Let me see. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. You gave us a lot
to yeah. And a lot of Hollywood is development. It's like 1 in maybe 50 things you develop get made. It's like I wrote a screenplay with Robert Downey Jr., but it's never got made, and it's probably not going to get made because not long after he went and did a little movie called Iron Man, and his career changed. So there's a lot of R&D, so to speak, in Hollywood. As I think most people know that, but
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of under the table work going on as well, and backstabbing, and there's a lot of money at stake, right? So whenever there's a lot of money at stake, the incentives, as we know in a fiat world, are always misaligned, and will generally bring out people's worst behavior rather than their best behavior.
Absolutely.
Which is why I'm so bullish about Bitcoin changing that whole industry, and what a powerful industry it is for relaying messages, right? This is what it is built upon. This is what it does. And I had Graham Rittner on the other day. He was the producer of Dare to Dream. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie yet, about the El Salvador story going on to a Bitcoin
Oh,
status.
yes. Yeah. I know of it. I just haven't watched it yet. Yeah. So John Ballas is in that, right?
That's right. Exactly that.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was just a pleb, never produced a movie in his life. So if these guys can do it, somebody with your background and your connections and your network, when you get around to making your Bitcoin movie, whether it's Thomas' science fiction novel, whatever that turns out to be, or script, whatever it is you're working on, and love you, Toma, keep writing, let's go. Because when this movie gets made, I say to my 16-year-old daughter all of the time, I'm like, we have so much for kids aged under 10. We have everything for adults. We have nothing for 10 to 18-year-olds. There's nothing. There's no Satoshi like superhero comic, sci-fi, anime type thing that would really hit home to that market. And they are the ones with the smartphones in their hands that are going to download a wallet. So we're missing something. And I'm just waiting for someone like yourself, like Toma. Bam, here it is. Have your tween and teenage kids watch this movie.
Yeah. No, I agree. And like when you look at movies like, whether it's The Matrix or The Big Short, or, we're so close to having a Bitcoin movie. Like we're very adjacent. And I think it needs to be subtle like that. So it's not Bitcoin, but Bitcoin can subtly be the hero or the reason or the solution to something. And that's why I like the mystery of Satoshi, because that's just an everyman's story. Like you don't even really need to talk about Bitcoin. It can just end with it. But it's like, who is this person? Like, how fascinating that we don't know. How could someone do this and just vanish? In today's digital age, how are there no fingerprints anywhere? Like, that's just incredible. So, yeah, it's like I would like, and that's partly what I'm trying to do by networking and meeting people. And it's like, who can I meet? Who can I collaborate with? How can I help with my skills? How do we get out there? And I didn't realize that you're right, that the 10 to 18 crowd, that because I think wow, there's a hole there, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and guess who is the average age going audience? It's like 14-year-olds,
Yep. Yeah, it's very exciting because once somebody cracks the little code there for getting the eyeballs and the attention of that age group, then we're really off to the races. And I hope a lot of families will be coming to the Madeira conference, because we hope to have a whole area for kids and a stage with kids, teenagers on the stage asking questions of the panel. And then we can really start, okay, what questions do they have? How can we answer them? And how can we craft our message to that age group as well? So lots of work to be done for sure. So the book, it's a labor of love, as we know. You don't just wake up
Yes,
one
as you
day and
know.
say, right, I'm gonna write a book. You usually procrastinate for at least 6 months before you actually get going. What was the process? What was the flow like for you? How did it all go?
Oh, you mean like the actual mechanics of the writing part?
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to have 21 chapters, right? Cute. And I knew I wanted each chapter to be roughly 21 minutes in audio form. I was thinking about the audio book first, since I figure most people want that. And I'd learned from releasing books before that Amazon's SEO favors having as many formats available as possible. Like if someone's going to get to your book, they want as many ways to sell that book as possible. And they also favor the author doing their own narration. So rather than reach out to Guy Swan, I said, okay, I'll just do this myself. So knowing that, it was very selfish, Daniel. I said, what are the areas of Bitcoin that I like to think I know, but I don't know really well? And so I would take an area, whether it was mining or just energy in general, or even inflation. So some of the general fundamentals. And I would read everything I could. I would listen to everything I could. And I just collected notes on just that chapter, right? Like, so mining, it was a ton of stuff from Daniel Batten, ton of stuff from Troy Cross, and, reading actual reports. And then synthesizing my own thoughts in a way where I was trying to write to someone younger, and I was trying to write to also boomers and, like my parents, and, who doesn't understand this. So it's like, I'm not going to just say, oh, there's this miner. It's like, oh, well, there's this shoeboxed computer that's like a space heater, once I so it was getting those 21 chapters. Once I had those 21 chapters and I fully understood the information, then I was able to lay it out in a way where I think similar to other Bitcoin books do this, where you lay out the problem first, before you can sort of show them the solution. But I tried to do it in a way that we do in Hollywood, where we drop seeds and hints, and which is why, like, if you read the first 2, 3, 4 chapters, I'm dropping hints that don't really explain, and people are like, "Wait, what?" But I'm hoping to add a little bit of suspense and get there. Some of the more technical things, and the book isn't very technical, but there's a 3-chapter arc where I borrow the characters from the TV show Friends, and I use them to help explain how nodes work and how miners work. And, they meet this mysterious guy in their New York coffee shop named Satoshi. And I just thought it was helpful because people have a hard time getting through that part. Like, how does Bitcoin actually work? We get all of these metaphors and analogies, but what is it really technically doing? And I thought, I want to really tackle that. That was one of the most challenging. I spent half my time just trying to figure that part out, because I just needed to learn it myself. It's like, how does this really work? And because I knew a lot of my circles in Hollywood would read this, I wanted to spend time on the devastation in the other countries. I wanted to spend time on what inflation really is, because they don't really understand it. They're like, oh yeah, things get more expensive. Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? But it's not supposed to be that way. And so I wanted to spend time on that and bringing that through other countries, and what's going on in these other countries that people aren't even aware of. Like, we're so sequestered in a bubble over here and in Los Angeles, like, people have no idea. So that just so what was my so now I'll finally answer your question. I only wrote for like two hours a day. That was it. Like, I would be too exhausted. It was all walking, thinking, voice memos, and then write. And as you know, as a writer, Daniel, it's like anyone can really write. It's like, and my very first book, I sloppily wrote because I thought writing was just writing. And it wasn't until, I finally learned, and especially with this book, that it's all about editing. And so I was ruthless, just killing my babies, cutting out sentences, shaving syllables, just trying to make it as nutrient dense as possible so that, you aren't having to spend too much time on going through nonsense. So I don't think my book necessarily benefits other Bitcoiners. There's some fairly big Bitcoiners that have read it and really love it and appreciate it, but it's all stuff that they know. Like you're probably not hearing anything new in my book, but it maybe is just a different way to help educate those that are no coiners or noobs.
And this is
and
again,
honestly, maybe I'm too. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this is the point I want everybody to understand. There aren't enough Bitcoin books. There aren't enough Bitcoin articles. There aren't enough podcasts. There aren't enough YouTube videos. There aren't enough films. We are still so early, and then aren't enough languages. So,
Yeah,
all we have to we keep having to push forward, because if we stop, if we rest on our laurels, if we go into this with the like the mindset of, oh, I've got something to say, but all the books have already been written anyway, who am I, and fall at the first hurdle of imposter syndrome, we lose.
yeah.
So hats off to you, man, because you did it. You wrote it. It's huge. It's massive. And you'll never know who you inspire or how many people, but it's out there and it will do its thing.
No, it's great to hear you say that. I was struggling, halfway through, or not halfway through, but towards the end of my book, I almost didn't put it out. I said, I'm just going to keep this for myself. I learned so much. You often write for yourself, not for others. And Corey Clipston from Swan said, no, like just what you said. He said, you have to get it out there. Just your circle of people. If only they read it, it's so helpful. And I said, okay, I won't be worried. I'll just get it out there. And to be honest, and maybe I'm just stupid in some areas, but I had purchased a few Bitcoin books. Honestly, I haven't read that many. I think I'm familiar with a lot of the information, but I had puffed some of them because some of them were.
Yeah, go.
Did I lose you?
Yeah, no, I lost your audio for a second, but yeah, you were saying.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Apple Music suddenly just flipped on. I found them either too economics heavy or too engineering heavy or computer science heavy. And I know it must just be me because some of these books are ridiculously popular and helpful, and I probably should go back and read them now that I understand Bitcoin better. But I thought, nope, my friends that are on Robinhood and trading Tesla and Amazon and meme stocks and all that's, like, how do I talk to them? My friends that have 2 or 3 rentals and Airbnb businesses, but they're exhausted and don't want to be running those. Like, how do I speak to them? And I'm sure there's a lot of good books that do that. And that's my problem. It's like, maybe I took the hard route. I spent all that time writing when I probably just should have just read a few more books and said, here it is. This is the book I need to recommend to people. But I'm just now realizing how many books there. I thought there were only like 5 books or so when I started my book. I obviously didn't do deep research. And now I see there's probably 100 Bitcoin books or more. But you're right. How many fiat books are there, right? Mm-hmm. Hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm. All on the same topic as well,
all on the same topic. I mean, even you as a trader, I mean, how many trading books? I mean, there's so many.
Just so many, all saying the same exact thing in a slightly different way. And all of the technical analysis books and all of that kind of, it's just pure charlatans, like trying to drag you in. And we'll get them into the Bitcoin space soon as well. And we'll have very bad Bitcoin books written. Hopefully we as a community can out them sooner rather than later. But at the moment, for the most part, I've read God knows how many, or listened to God knows how many as well. All are excellent in their own way, and coming from they're coming from integrity and humility. No one's writing these books to try and get rich, No. Saif didn't write the Bitcoin Standard because he thought he might sell, millions of copies translated into 25 different languages. No, he had some shit on his chest he needed to get off. Right?
It's the worst way to try to make money is to write a book. The worst.
And that's, and he is the shining example of somebody who sells a lot of books in the space. But he didn't set out with that mindset. And for anybody listening, I just wrote an article just a week ago, and it was published by Consensus. Thank you, Consensus Network. A great place to buy books. If for those listening, bitcoinbook.shop, and you can get 10% discount on any books, and they ship globally if you pay via the Lightning Network. And you also get 10% if you use the code Bitten from the show, because I try and help shill the guys, and they host my book on there and they sell that. And they translate as many books as they can into as many different languages as well. And that just a pleb initiative, just plebs doing plebby things. None of them had ever published books before. And now they're a publishing house and they're trying to run a business on a Bitcoin standard.
That's great.
These are the kind of like pioneers we need in the space. I forgot where I was going with all of that. Basically books, education.
Yeah, I read your old
article.
Copper Nose article.
I wrote an article about it was called the Great Debasement, and this happened during the reign of King Henry VIII. And in the UK curriculum, the school curriculum, you learn about King Henry VIII is part of the history. And I was like, okay, well, I thought I knew about King Henry VIII and all of his wives and his murderous exploits and cutting out his own religion so he could get out of a marriage and all of that. You know, you do all of that and you remember the dates and you remember the wives. Like, oh, wait, hang on a minute. What's this great debasement? What's this? He used to be called Old Copper Nose. Why was he called Old Copper Nose? And that took me down a rabbit hole. And I was taken down that rabbit hole because of another book called Fraud Coin, written by Rune Ostergaard. And that is about 1,000 years of inflation as a policy. And he has 10 or 15 different historical accounts of inflation.
Wow.
Throughout human history and what we're dealing with today. Did I think anyone would read the article? I didn't care. Doesn't matter. I wrote it, sent it off to Consensus. They edited it. Rune edited it. And bam, they put it up. And now it's on Looking Glass as well. So it's out there now. And this is what we need more of. So anyone listening, pick up your pen. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a great article. I love the story of Old Copper Nose, and I love that his ego was so big that he had to face the coin rather than the profile, and so his nose would rub off, and like Pinocchio, you knew he was lying. You'd see the red nose just poking out. It's fantastic.
Absolutely amazing. So, mortgage business. Well, you must view that differently now through a Bitcoin lens. That's definitely like a full-on fiat game. What was your big?
It's the money printer. It's literally printing money.
It literally is, and this is again what a lot of people don't understand.
It literally
take a mortgage out when you or any loan, where it's for your car, for your washing machine, for your sofa, whenever you're buying something on loaned money, you have literally green lit the bank to counterfeit money into the system. So you are debasing everybody else around you. And this is this is the thing that billionaires do as well, right? People such Mark Zuckerberg's a great example. The story is he bought like 3 or 4 of his neighboring houses so he could have more privacy.
Yeah.
Right? So let's see. He buys those houses. He's a billionaire. He could cut a check for those houses. I guarantee you banks were falling over themselves to offer him ridiculously low interest rate loans because his credit would have been so good. He would have taken the loans. Therefore, a billionaire taking loans out to the tune of, let's say, 5 million is debasing the purchasing power of every other person around him because he just greenlit the bank to go ahead and print that money, counterfeit it. It is basically counterfeiting. So the bank counterfeits.
That's right.
That lowers the purchasing power of all the existing dollars in the system. He gets his 5 houses. They all go up in value. We get a little bit poorer. This is what we're fighting.
That's right.
Unwinnable. So you just have to exit and get onto a different system.
Yeah, Mark's neighbors who want just one house for utility have to pay that monetary premium if they can even afford it to get up there. So they're having to print more money, and it just becomes this exponential feedback loop of more money printing. And that's what's beautiful about Bitcoin, to hopefully help demonetize some of that and let us have a better piggy bank than having to throw all these things in houses.
So how many How many times have you had that conversation with people in your circles now that are deeply kind of ingrained in the idea of cheap credit, cheap money, keep churning out the wheel, let's go, keep borrowing. This is the only way you win in the fiat game, which it is. Like the, Sailors said this himself. The only way you win in the fiat game is to take out as much money as you possibly can.
Yeah. And that used to be me. And I used to preach that. I wrote a book about that called Make Bank, which was all about leveraging. It was for accredited investors. It was for all these vehicles and, buying legal settlements and bridge loans. And I mean, I was fully, I don't know what the color of real estate would be, but whatever that color is, that was the color of the pill that I was taking. But I have these conversations every day now because, people are people are still fiat minded. And so they're like, oh, is now a good time to buy real estate? What if interest rates go down? Oh, I can still buy this property. I'll refi when it lowers, blah, blah, blah. I want, just yesterday, someone called me who wants to do an Airbnb. And this morning I just talked to someone who wants to buy a second house, a neighboring house next to them because they think they can rent it out. And with both of them, I was like, let me tell you about Bitcoin. And I don't think they were happy at first by me changing the subject, but I feel like with both of them, they're starting to think now like, oh, because it's just a simple question. Do you really want to be a landlord? Do you really want this real estate? Or do you want what that says about you? Do you want to walk to a party and say, oh, I own this place in Nashville? Or do you want what the money can buy you? Because you have to be honest with yourself. If you really just want what the money can buy you and you don't need to flex, oh, yeah, I own another home in Lake Arrowhead or in Austin. If that's really not you, then you should look at Bitcoin because it shouldn't matter. And it's so much more peaceful as well. And I go down the numbers with them and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm having that conversation constantly, Daniel. It's like, yeah, if someone really needs to buy a home and because they're raising a family and there's like, there's a reason, I get it. And, they're going to be in this job for a while or yada, yada. I want to help them get in their home. That's fine. I'm going to do that. But it's all of the people that are, I mean, I had 20 pieces of property at one time, Daniel. Like,
wow.
I mean, I thought I was the king. I was like, what is going on? And as I started to learn about Bitcoin, I've been selling them off, and I still have maybe eight or nine left, but I just want to get rid of it all. I don't want it. I want more Bitcoin.
Wow. That's it. That's a mind shift right there, huh?
And so I had to incur the taxes. I had to take the capital gains taxes because that's why I had so many. I had been 1031ing. I would buy a loft that would become a fourplex, that would become a 10plex, and then buy another city and another city, another city. And I was taking retirement accounts and then buying them through the retirement accounts. And real estate to me, like I grew up just that's what you do. They're not making any more of it. It's scarce. Well, we know that's not true, but it's like, that's what I thought. But now that a better zip code has come along, man, I'll take Bitcoin zip code, all day long.
Wow. And think like the time and energy and expertise that you have to put into playing that game, because they're forever changing the regulations as well. And they're forever changing the percentages that you can borrow at, or the tax regime in whatever jurisdiction is suddenly changed on you, and rates are suddenly changed on you, or you're suddenly locked into a rent cap or something. God, exhausting.
It's exhausting. I mean, I got a subcontractor's license. I own every tool in Home Depot. I would have these trucks. I was flying around the country, driving everywhere. Like every spare moment I had, I was fixing something. And I just thought that's what you do. And it's like if your time is what's the most valuable thing to you in your life, if it's just time, if that's really all that's scarce, it's like, wow, all that wasted time just to chase inflation, to have a little bit more money to carry into the future. But I'm killing myself in the present to have that money in the future. I don't know. Bitcoin made me realize just how broken it was, and that I never cared about the real estate. I just cared about securing my purchasing power, my excess contribution to society, right? I wanted to carry it forward in a more pure vessel. And real estate, I thought, was the purest form, but it wasn't. And by the way, that's a lot of that's not without risk. Not all of those have succeeded, and not all of those have made a lot of money. And there's lawsuits, there's deterioration, there's fires, whatever. There's bad tenants, it's just so much more peaceful. It's like I can think and I can breathe, and I'm just happy, with Bitcoin and multi-sig, custody. And so, it's, I feel bad on one hand because there are so many people in my circles who I've gotten into tons of income real estate, tons of it. I think they're probably doing okay in nominal terms, but I would like to get them over to something better.
Well, let's hope that they read your book or read your newsletter or take your advice. And I would say probably a good intro for them, if they're not reading your own work, would be Andy Edstrom's book, Why Buy Bitcoin? He wrote that as a certified financial advisor with a fiduciary duty, and actually lived up to his fiduciary duty and wrote a book about Bitcoin, because that duty states that once you see an investment that could be of potential gain for your clients, it is up to you to inform them fully of that. How many are breaking that is
absolutely,
it's sickening, really, truly sickening, because you can still ask now any CFA, oh, and what about Bitcoin? And they'll just laugh you out the room. They won't even think of putting
that's right,
a little percentage of that into your portfolio. They're still singing
that's
from
right.
the same song sheet of all of those books that we were talking about earlier. Diversify your portfolio. Make sure you've got X
That's
in bonds,
right.
X in stocks, X in fixed income, something for a rainy day. Like, okay, you're not talking about Bitcoin. No, it's it's criminal. So you are definitely in a good position now to help people understand that there is something afoot here, and hopefully, fingers crossed, your book and your connections and your network will help many more people unlock their brains, because they're so closed-minded.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and it's one reason why I'm in favor of the Bitcoin ETFs, because on one hand, it's going to give a vote of confidence to all the registered investment advisors and all the people that, are trying to pump people into bonds and whatnot. And even if it's just a tiny percent, we know that's going to be in the right direction, because then our orange pilling becomes, okay, you have some Bitcoin. Let me show you the better way to own it. It's like, great, you have 1 or 2% there. Now you want more. You see what it's doing. Let's get you over, because now as we know, it's just difficult for some people to even own commodities, and some companies can't do it. And but there's ways. You just have to research. I mean, I physically own it and physically hold my own keys in my IRA, my own Bitcoin. I didn't realize that was possible. But the further, I now work at the Bitcoin Advisor, and we bring over high net worth individuals and family offices, and we help people inheritance solutions and all that. And so I've learned so much about, anyone can own Bitcoin, and you can own it in any ways. It just takes a few steps. It takes some work, right? You need to prove your work to actually own this beautiful asset.
Yeah, I'm with you on the ETF. I mean, we can scream about it as much as we like. What will be is looking like it's coming. So let's use it as a Trojan horse. Let's use it against them.
Yes.
It's beautiful, because it's going to de-risk the asset and re-alight the conversation perhaps that we've been having with our parents for God knows how long. They might now sit up and like, oh, right, okay, I see an ETF. It's like, yeah. Now we could be pricks at that point and like, I've been fucking telling you. Or you take the opportunity with humility, you stay humble, which, the classic meme is, the guy with the red buttons, it's like, stay humble or fuck that shit, when the time comes.
Boop, boop.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, well, look, it's happening.
Yes.
It's already happened in Europe. We have a Bitcoin ETF in Europe. It didn't make so much noise because we're not America, We
Right.
don't have the US dollar. We don't
Canada,
have eyes
yeah, a few
on the
places.
right, exactly. So as soon as it does get the green light and BlackRock come out with all of their marketing propaganda, and companies that have been interested in getting that exposure but aren't able to because one, they're not allowed to because it's not considered an investable asset, so therefore it's just not even
Right.
available to them. That changes.
It's not in their charter. They need board approval. Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Well, that's why I'm kind of
changes.
excited that there's.
Yeah, I was going to say that changes in 2024.
Oh, I was going to say that's why I'm kind of.
Oh, we seem to have a little lag. Sorry, listeners. 1 second. I'll just get this one out.
Yeah, it's my bad. I didn't. Yes, sorry.
Okay. So we have that changing in 2024, the ETFs coming through. And then in 2025, we have the fair value accounting rules kicking in. So therefore, you'd be able to account differently with Bitcoin on your balance sheet. So Saylor's got a busy year ahead of himself, orange pilling as many boards as he possibly can. And then just sit back, stack your sats, stay humble, self-custody, and watch the circus. It's like having a front row seat at the best game ever. Just sit back and watch and don't get carried away with the price spikes and whatever else. Just keep it simple and keep orange pilling. That's the best we can do as plebs.
That's it. But we have to just be cognizant of like activity bias, right? We all think we need to be doing something because that's the fiat world. We got to be. It's like, no, you're doing something is learning. Just learn and study, buy it, and like you said, just sit on your hands and let Bitcoin do its work. I mean, one reason I'm just back to the ETFs, I'm excited that there's so many. I mean, potentially 10 or 12, and from what I'm hearing, they potentially could all get approved at the same time. Is that I would think eventually there's going to be some competition to where, who's going to prove their reserves? Who's going to eventually have some kind of redemption? I mean, can you imagine if you could hold your own key in an ETF? I mean, I don't know if that's even possible, but that's another reason why I'm bullish, because I sort of compare it to guns. It's like it's really just a tool, and you can own a gun that's fully compliant and registered and everybody knows about it, or you could file off the serial number and keep it under your desk, and it still works as a gun. Some people will say, oh, well, the only way to have it is in, don't tell anyone about it and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I get that. And I'm all for freedom and sovereignty and all of that. But there's also something to be said for all of the people that don't really care about that yet.
And that's the majority right now. That's
yes,
for sure. All right, Terence, we're just coming up to an hour. So I'm going to ask you the last question.
Thank you so much.
No problem. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
Oh, boy, that's a great question. So I would try to give it to someone in my world just because their voices mean so much. And I think there's a couple of people that are really, really, really close. I mean, I don't know if he's been orange pilled yet, but I would love for someone like a Joe Rogan or someone that has a really big voice, because that would be a game changer for a lot of people. That's not as sweet as saying I want, my aunt or someone like that who I care more about than Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan will probably influence more people. That'll be more important, more impact. So it's not that unique or creative an answer, but I really think that would be huge. And I think that will happen soon.
Mm-hmm. Do you know of please don't dox anybody but have you heard of any kind of like high profile actors? Have
yes.
they ever? Yeah.
There's quite a few, and most of them keep very, very quiet about it. Hollywood is a high cancel culture, and also with what happened to FTX and Tom Brady and stuff, they're terrified. But there are ridiculously big A-level actors that are very, very much into Bitcoin. And we talk about Bitcoin, which is fantastic, but they're terrified of telling anybody anything other than just the closest friends. They'll slip a book and whatnot. But I'm hoping they will soon feel safe, as crazy as that sounds, to come forward. And they know how ridiculous that is, some of them, but they also still want to continue to be hired. I mean, this is a town that, even though it's like open to all kinds of like races and sexual genders and whatnot, that not long ago was canceling people for being gay, even, if you could believe that. Like, they love to just cancel people. Like, and there's actors back from Ellen DeGeneres and people that had come out at times where they got canceled. You know, now you can't believe it because it's the opposite of that, but they're always looking to cancel someone for something. And right now it has to do with the climate or with energy. And because people still don't get the energy thing with Bitcoin, it's like, oh, what? That thing that's tearing apart our planet and blah, blah, blah. You know, they're just repeating just misinformation.
DiCaprio being the biggest. Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I know. It's, yeah, like yes, actually, that's a great, I wish someone like him would get orange pill. That's actually a great, maybe a better name than Rogan. I don't know. But I don't know if he would speak about it like Rogan. Rogan at least will speak his mind. It needs to be someone who's not too out there, you know, because like if Alex Jones or someone gets, you know, it's like people are gonna be like, oh, you know, wackadoodle, or, you know, so two right, two left. I don't know.
Well, what's going to be interesting, Terence, is one, you know, give it 5 years when you guys are working your magic, making films, and you've got actors falling over themselves to come and be in the film, a Bitcoin film, and play pivotal roles in, and, you know, they won't be demanding ridiculously high wages. They'll be demanding, just put me in the film because I need to share the message, because I've got to give back.
That's how we Bitcoiners feel. Yeah.
Yes, we all feel it at some stage. So the ones that are sitting there now on the sidelines, I guarantee you they're feeling this urge to give back to the community because they learned from someone. They learned from a book, or they learned from a YouTube video, or they learned from a podcast. They learned from someone, and multiple people. And they will, one day, they will come forward, and it'll be the same with like big respected sports stars or songwriters or music artists or whatever. And with them, they'll bring their fan base, hopefully.
Yes.
So we just got to be ready. We got to be ready with the books in place and the podcasts in place and the humility and the tools to teach them the correct methods. So thank you for stepping up and writing your book and putting it out there. So Proof of Money is Amazon the only place that it's available? Is it? Can anybody?
It's available really everywhere, but that's just the easiest. And if people don't want to be doxxed, they, you know, just have it sent to them. And anyone that can't afford it, just DM me. I will give me your QR code. I will send you enough sats to just pick it up yourself. I'm happy to do that. I don't want to make any money on this book. I won't make any money. I just want everyone to have it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Before we wrap it up, are there any final closing thoughts that we didn't touch on? Something else you wanted to get off your chest?
No, I mean, we could talk for 12 hours if we wanted to get into it, but I also know who you are and your guests and what you're doing. And, you know, a lot of the information is there. I just really appreciate it. I've been a fan of yours ever since I learned that you were teaching your kids and how much you were involving your kids. Because it's kind of like, well, are adults smarter, or are we just pre-programmed to not get it? Like, why are kids getting it so quickly? And that really just clicked with me. And so that's when I reached out to you and said, I would love to talk to this guy because he's teaching his kids. So he's doing something right. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you. And I owe a huge amount of gratitude to the community as well that are teaching them far greater than I am, because, you know, when we get to the conferences, they all just fork off. They find new friends of any age. And they come back to me like 6 hours later. We've just been over here with this dude, and he's doing this, and and we've got to go there and visit them. I'm like, yes, we do.
Fantastic. That's amazing. You're a wealthy man.
That's right. And because it's the fiat saying, our network is our net worth.
That's right.
Our network is Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin network starts with us, the people, the social layer. And then we can build on top of that, and everything else gets so much easier. Like you said, all the noise just goes away, and we can concentrate on what truly is important. And I just, like you, I just want as many people to feel that as possible. So it's work like yours
Yes.
that is going to go a long way to helping that. So thank you very much, man. I look forward to chatting again soon, or seeing you in person one day
Yeah,
at one of the conferences, wherever
absolutely.
you go.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thanks, Terence.